That feeling you get when you meet someone and everything just clicks. The racing heart, the can't stop thinking about them fog, the sense that you've known them your whole life. Your brain processes that a lot, like an addiction. Same reward loop. So what actually happens inside your brain when you feel that connection with someone? We've all been there. That feeling is intoxicating. Genuinely. It makes everything else in your life feel less vivid by comparison. Except everything I just described is a chemical event. Your brain treats it a lot like other short-term reward loops. When you feel that spark with someone, there's a very specific cocktail being mixed inside your skull. Dopamine, the reward chemical, the one that makes you feel like you just won something. Same region, same pattern. Your brain doesn't care if this person is good for you. It cares about the hit. And it gets worse, because the most addictive version of this comes from the person who texts you back unpredictably. Behavioral psychology calls this intermittent reinforcement, the slot machine principle. You pull the lever, sometimes you win, mostly you don't, and somehow the uncertainty makes you pull harder. So the person who takes 3 hours to respond? Who keeps you guessing? Your brain reads that as jackpot incoming. The inconsistency amplifies the attraction. You're getting a stronger hit, and this chemical cocktail has an expiry date. The timeline is weirdly specific. Back in the 1970s, a psychologist named Dorothy TENNOV started studying what she called LIMERENCE, that obsessive, all-consuming, can't-eat, can't-sleep phase of early attraction. She interviewed over 500 people across different demographics, and one pattern kept showing up. The feeling peaks somewhere around 6 to 8 weeks. Then it starts to taper off, almost like clockwork. You know this feeling, even if you've never heard the word. It's the phase where you hear a song in the grocery store and get emotional about a person you've known for 11 days. Where every notification might be them. Where you rehearse conversations in the shower. Then around week 6 or 8, something shifts. It just quiets down a little. And you panic. You think something's wrong. You think the feeling is dying. You start wondering if maybe this person isn't right for you after all, because surely the right person would keep this intensity alive forever. TENNOV's data says something completely different. The fading of limerence is actually what makes real love possible. You can't truly love someone you don't truly see. And during limerence, your brain is on a dopamine bender, constructing a version of this person from incomplete information and wishful thinking. The real human, the one with bad habits and complicated family dynamics and a weird thing they do when they're stressed, you haven't met that person yet. The chemicals are running the show. At week 6, you're finally in a position to fall in love for real. A lot of us never get there with the actual person, though. Think about how little information you actually have about someone after 2 or 3 dates. You know what they do for work, roughly. You know a handful of their opinions, maybe their favorite restaurant, or that they went through a rough patch a couple years ago. That's it. That's your entire data set. And yet, by date 3, you've already decided this person is kind, emotionally intelligent, probably great with kids, and shares your values on every issue that matters. Your brain filled in every gap with the most generous possible assumption. Psychologists call this the halo effect. One attractive quality bleeds outward until everything about them seems attractive. They mention they like hiking, and your brain goes, outdoorsy, probably health conscious, probably adventurous, probably the kind of person who'd be fun on a road trip. You just built an entire human being out of one hobby and a nice smile. Those deep conversations at 2 a.m. on date 2, the ones where you tell each other things you never tell anyone. I get why those feel like intimacy. Like you've skipped ahead. Like you've found someone who truly gets you. Both of you are performing your most compelling, most carefully curated selves. You're showing the highlights and treating them like the full picture. I've done this. I suspect you have too. The real question is whether you actually know this person, or whether you built someone out of 4 conversations and a hope. You're falling for your own imagination, wearing their face. And the reason we're so good at building these fantasies goes deeper than just being romantic. This part might be uncomfortable for some of you. That's fine. Attachment theory, originally developed by John Bowlby and later expanded by Mary Ainsworth, says something that sounds simple but isn't. The way your primary caregivers related to you as a child created a template for what love feels like in your nervous system, not what love should feel like. What it does feel like in your body before your conscious mind gets involved. If you grew up with a parent who was warm and consistent, who showed up, who made you feel safe in a predictable way, love probably registered as calm, as grounding. Your nervous system calibrated to that. If you grew up with a parent who was unpredictable, sometimes warm, sometimes cold, sometimes there, sometimes gone, your nervous system learned something very different. Love registered as anxiety, a knot in your stomach, waiting, intensity, and the trap is subtle. When you go out into the world looking for love, your nervous system scans for what's familiar, not what's healthy. So the person who runs hot and cold, who keeps you slightly off balance, who makes your stomach flip, that feels like home. If you've ever said, "I just don't feel a spark with the nice ones," this is specifically about that. The nice ones probably did trigger something in your body. The feeling was just unfamiliar, and your nervous system interpreted unfamiliar as wrong. For a lot of people, the nervous system can't easily distinguish between excitement and anxiety. It just recognizes the pattern. That doesn't make you broken. It makes you human. So here's a stat that stuck with me. Researchers at the University of Texas conducted a longitudinal study on couples. They measured initial chemistry, that early spark and intensity of attraction, then followed the couples over time to see how it correlated with relationship satisfaction 2 years later. Zero correlation. None. Couples who reported off-the-charts chemistry at the beginning were no more likely to be happy, committed, or satisfied than couples who described their start as slow and unremarkable. The spark was statistically irrelevant to long-term happiness. So, if chemistry tells you nothing useful about your future with someone, what do you actually look for? There are some pretty clear tells. There are a few patterns that make the difference pretty obvious. First, when lust is driving, you think about how they make you feel. The rush, the validation, the high. When love is driving, you think about how they're doing. You notice when they're tired. You care about their bad Tuesday, even when it has nothing to do with you. Second, lust idealizes. You fill in the gaps with the best possible version. Love sees clearly the flaws, the contradictions, the annoying habits, and chooses them anyway with full knowledge. That distinction matters more than most people realize. Third, under lust, conflict feels catastrophic. Every disagreement threatens to end everything because the whole thing is built on a feeling that can't survive friction. Under love, conflict is workable, a problem to solve together. Fourth, lust needs them to complete you. There's a hole, and they fill it. Love wants to build with them because you're already whole on your own. Fifth, and this one catches the most people. Under lust, their inconsistency makes you want them more. The slot machine is still running. Under love, their consistency is what makes you feel secure. Predictability stops feeling boring and starts feeling like trust. So if lust can't be the foundation, what can? The unsexy answer is compatibility. I know that word makes people want to fall asleep, so I'll make it worth your time. Compatibility sounds like something your aunt would recommend at Thanksgiving while pointing vaguely in your direction. That reputation is completely unearned. I think the confusion between compatibility and settling has probably ended more relationships than actual incompatibility ever has. Here's the distinction that matters. Shared interests are surface level. You both like Thai food and true crime podcasts. Great. That's a fun Tuesday. Want to level up your people skills? Join our YouTube membership for early access to scripts, input on future topics, and connection with a community that gets the social struggle. Click join below, and let's master human interaction together. Shared values are what actually hold a relationship together. How do you handle money? What does loyalty actually mean to you? When things get hard, do you move toward each other or away? Those questions determine whether a relationship survives year 5. The GOTTMAN Institute, which has been studying what makes relationships work for over 40 years, found that the number one predictor of divorce is contempt. The feeling that your partner is beneath you. Contempt has nothing to do with how much chemistry you had on date 1. Nothing. There are really only 3 compatibility questions that matter long-term. How do you each handle conflict? Do you fight to win or fight to understand? Where do you see your life in 10 years? And do those visions actually overlap? What does loyalty look like to you when it's tested? In practice, not in theory? Knowing what you actually need and finding it is the opposite of settling. But even when compatibility is clearly there, people sabotage it. And it's sneaky because it disguises itself as devotion. Putting someone on a pedestal feels romantic. It feels like admiration, like recognizing that this person is extraordinary, and you're lucky to have them. From the outside, it even looks like love. I fell into this one hard in my early 20s. The pedestal is actually a way of avoiding real intimacy. When you place someone above you, you don't have to be fully honest with them. You don't have to let them see the messy parts. You don't have to risk being truly known, because you've already established a hierarchy. They're up there, you're down here, and the gap between you works as a buffer. What always happens next is predictable. The person on the pedestal eventually does something human. They're selfish, or careless, or just normal in a way that contradicts the fantasy. And you don't adjust, you crash. The same person you elevated past all reasonable proportion, you now resent for being ordinary. Pedestal to basement. Same person, same behavior, different fantasy. If you've ever caught yourself thinking, they're too good for me, or I don't deserve them, that's the pedestal talking. It feels like humility, but it works as a shield against vulnerability. If they're above you, you never have to show them who you really are. Real love requires you to see them as a full, flawed, complicated human, and choose them anyway. Two people who've actually seen each other and decided, yeah, I'm in. That's the whole thing. And the only way to actually see who someone is, to get past who you want them to be, takes time. Specifically, time under pressure. Chemistry shows up in hours. Character takes months. You learn almost nothing about someone's character when everything's going well. Date night at a nice restaurant, you're getting their best performance. A vacation where everything goes right? That's the polished version. The real data shows up in the margins. How they treat a server when the order's wrong. How they respond to bad news, not dramatic bad news, just a regular, inconvenient Wednesday kind of bad news. Whether they show up when it's inconvenient for them to show up. Whether they can apologize without making the apology about themselves. The first 3 months of any relationship are almost meaningless as character data. Everyone's on their best behavior. You know that feeling when someone you're dating handles a minor crisis perfectly and you think, wow, they're so composed? Yeah, wait 6 months. The real test comes when they're tired, scared, stressed, or disappointed. That's when you start seeing the actual person. Watch how they handle things going sideways. If they're still calling an ex crazy 3 years later, that's data. File it. A study in the Journal of Happiness Studies, and yeah, that's the actual name, found that people who described their partner as their best friend reported relationship satisfaction levels roughly 2 times as high as those who use the word soulmate. Twice, best friend beats soulmate. Now, the moment that actually tells you whether any of this is real. John Gottman can watch a couple argue for 15 minutes and predict with over 90% accuracy whether they'll still be together in 6 years. Decades of research distilled into 4 specific patterns he calls the 4 horsemen: criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. Notice something about that list? None of those have anything to do with chemistry. None of them correlate with how intense the attraction was, how electric the first date felt, how much passion runs through the relationship. They're all about how you treat each other when things are hard. You can have the most electric connection on earth, and if contempt enters the room, you're done. There's a distinction worth making between fighting with someone and fighting against them. When you fight with someone, you're on the same team trying to solve a problem. When you fight against someone, you're trying to win. And the chemistry-driven relationship has a specific conflict pattern you'll probably recognize. Dramatic fight, dramatic makeup. Everything feels intense and alive. Then, the cycle repeats. Same slot machine, longer timeline. After a fight with this person, do you feel closer to them or further away? That answer is worth sitting with. Which brings me to something that gets a really bad reputation in modern dating: stability. Somewhere along the way we got sold the idea that stability in a relationship means the passion is gone. That if things are calm, they must be dead. That's completely backwards. A spark doesn't get you through February. It doesn't sit with you in a hospital waiting room. It doesn't hold you accountable when you're being difficult and still show up the next morning. For those of you with anxious attachment wiring, this part matters. The healthy relationship, the stable one, might genuinely feel wrong at first. Your nervous system is tuned to a different frequency. It's scanning for the highs and lows, the unpredictability, the intensity. When it gets calm instead, it reads that as absence, as boredom, as something missing. Your nervous system doesn't easily distinguish between excitement and anxiety. It just knows familiar and unfamiliar. So safety, real, grounded, consistent safety, might register as emptiness because it doesn't hurt, and you've been confusing the hurt for the love. The relationship that doesn't make you anxious isn't boring. You just didn't recognize it because your nervous system filed it under nothing happening. Real love barely looks like Instagram. It looks like a Tuesday night where you're both tired and one of you gets up to get the other a glass of water without being asked. A meeting they remembered you were nervous about, and a text that just says, "How'd it go?" Staying in the room during the hard conversation when every instinct says to leave. Barbara Fredrickson at UNC calls these micro moments of positivity resonance. The human translation is simpler, just paying attention, turning toward someone instead of away. GOTTMAN found that couples who stay together long-term respond to each other's bids for connection about 86% of the time. Couples who split, around 33%. The difference between lasting love and love that falls apart is so ordinary, it almost hurts. It's whether you look up from your phone when they say something. Real love is someone seeing the parts of you that leave dishes in the sink or shut down when you're overwhelmed and choosing to stay. Because they've decided you're worth it. So, what does this look like day to day? What it usually looks like in real life is pretty ordinary. Show up consistently, not perfectly. Showing up on the days you don't feel like it, following through when it would be easier to bail. Nobody writes poems about consistency, but it's what people actually describe when they talk about feeling loved. Express appreciation out loud. GOTTMAN's data keeps showing up here. Couples who explicitly voice what they're grateful for, even the small things, have dramatically different outcomes than couples who assume their partner just knows. They don't just know. Say it. Next, choose curiosity over assumption. When they do something that bothers you, your first instinct is to assign a motive. They're being selfish, they don't care, they're pulling away. Before you go there, ask, "What's going on with you?" 4 words. I genuinely believe those 4 words have saved more relationships than passion ever could. When you create safety, real, reliable safety, you create the conditions for deeper intimacy than chemistry ever produces. People open up when they feel secure. They become more themselves. The vulnerability that produces genuine closeness requires a foundation that won't crack when weight is placed on it. Only trust can do that. And trust is built slowly, through repeated evidence, over time. Chemistry is real. I've felt it, you've felt it. It's a genuine experience, and it feels like it means something. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you to ignore it entirely. But it's a starting point. The thing that gets your attention, full stop. The spark fades for everyone. What actually survives the 6-week cliff, the first real fight? The year where everything is hard and nobody feels particularly romantic, that's character. Shared values. The daily undramatic choice to keep showing up for someone who keeps showing up for you. The healthiest relationship you'll ever be in might be the quietest one. The one that doesn't make great stories at brunch. The one where nobody asks, "Are you okay?" Because the answer is obviously yes. That's the whole point. If any of this landed, I genuinely want to know which part. Drop it in the comments. And if you know someone who might be confusing chemistry for love right now, send them this. Chemistry gets you in the door. Love is what you build once you're inside. Learn something new? Hit that like button, share it with others, tap subscribe, and stick around for more. Got thoughts? I'd love to hear them in the comments.